This is the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. How are you doing today on this Thursday? Welcome into the Joe Gaither Show. You're watching us on Facebook, on Twitter, or on YouTube at Joe Gaither 6, or you're watching us on the Bama Central YouTube channel. We appreciate everybody who has joined us on podcast as well, maybe listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. You can always subscribe, rate, and review the show. Keep up with all the episodes that you might have missed right there on those podcast platforms. Gonna have a fun show today. We already talked to Jacob Bain and Justice Sandle, so those discussions will be on the back half of the show as Jacob Bain joined us to talk about Mississippi State basketball and a little bit of wide receiver talk with Mississippi State football. And then Justice Sandle and myself went game by game by game with the Miami Hurricanes. He and I had vastly different opinions about the Miami season, so you can catch those conversations on the back portion of the show. What we're going to do on the front portion with the Alabama discussion is talk about the winds of change in college football. And, of course, you can always jump in and join us on the comment section on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Joe Gaither 6. We invite your comments, questions, queries, or complaints right there at Joe Gaither 6. What I want to talk about is the Big 12 making major money moves, how it might affect the SEC, and what we could hypothetically expect right here in Tuscaloosa. If you look at the major reporting outlets, today, the Big 12 is exploring two different sources of brand new revenue. One looks very, very bad, and one looks, positive. Looks like a positive source of money. The Big 12, Brett Yormark, the conference commissioner, has reportedly been in talks with CVC Capital. CVC Capital Partners. I couldn't read my own handwriting. CVC Capital Partners from Luxembourg are reportedly offering the Big 12 $1 billion in an exchange for 20% stake in the league. The 16 conference members would receive a portion of that cash investment, and the league would receive access to CVC's investment services and clients. This private equity investment is intended to narrow the revenue gap between the leagues and the industry's two super conferences, the SEC and the Big Ten. And okay, of course, everyone is, very, very enticed by easy money, and this does seem like it would be a quick influx of cash for the Big 12. But anytime you're giving away conference ownership and 20%, it can be a dangerous thing. What will CVC capital investments want with their money? Capital partners want with their money? What will they want? When will they want their 20%? And what will it cost the Big 12 in the long run? Can they ever satisfy that partnership? Now, I don't know the finances as well as maybe I need to for this conversation, but on the outset, it feels like a bad deal. The much more the smoother, or the much more the positive change for the Big 12 and for the Conference USA today comes in the form of corporate sponsorships. We talked on the show before about how the NCAA is changing and how the House versus the NCAA will change college athletics, particularly with the $15 to $20 million expense that a lot of these programs will have to undertake with the ruling and the settlement. $15 to $20 million going directly to the athletes each and every year. What is it going to mean for athletic departments across the country? Well, one way, and this is started by the Big 12 because they're trying to catch up with the SEC and the Big Ten. But one thing you're hearing today is that Allstate is trying to buy some naming rights for the Big 12. Now, they have tried the All-State 12 has been floated out there. The big All-State Conference has been floated out there. I think this is a perfect chance for the Big 12 to rebrand itself, because now it has 16 different teams. It hasn't been it hasn't been 12 teams in, oh my gosh, quite some time. So it's a perfect time for the Big 12 to rebrand themselves, and All-State seems like a very positive partner. Now, will it kind of make some of the older folks, make some of the traditionalists mad? Absolutely, because they're, oh man, you're selling out. Well, they're selling out absolutely to try to keep up with the Joneses and to try to salvage probably non-revenue sports. Allstate is looking to invest at $30 to $50 million in the Big 12 to stick their name on their conference. And I think the big Allstate conference probably is the best name because, okay, you don't want it to be the Big 16 conference or the Allstate 16 conference because you never know what conference realignment will bring. But $30 to $50 million seems like it's going to be the investment to buy the naming rights for the Big 12. And good on you for Allstate. This is the direction you're going in college athletics. Conference USA reports have come out today that Conference USA is also looking to sell their naming rights, and Globe Life is seeming like they're working together to form a partnership. So this makes me ask you, what is the SEC's naming rights worth? If the Big 12 can get $30 to $50 million, surely the SEC is worth more. We haven't really talked about it on the show before, but you've seen rumors and basically confirmation that you could put corporate sponsorships on the playing surface in college football fields today. You can do it right here at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and it'll be a way to basically create another source of revenue for your college and for your conference and thus for your players. And this is all, in my opinion, a way to mitigate that $15 to $20 million expense. And it's also a way, I mean, people can talk about, oh, well, they can just pay it anyways without the corporate sponsorships. I don't want to see Bryant-Denny Stadium filled up with corporate sponsorships on the 25-yard line and on the 50. I want the Alabama A right there. Understand that, but don't you want swimming and diving? Don't you want volleyball? Don't you want women's rowing? And don't you want softball to continue? Don't you want baseball to continue as sports here at the University of Alabama? You got 21 sports, and only 2 of them are really bringing in revenue, turning a profit. And so the other 19 sports, are in danger, are in jeopardy. And corporate sponsorships are a way to maybe work around that or salvage those sports, salvage the future of those sports. I've got several different names the SEC should explore and some names they should not explore. You can let me know in the comments what you think the SEC should do, what corporate sponsorship the SEC should chase after. The easy and obvious one to me is Dr. Pepper. And I think you'll see the SEC follow suit. They're not going to leave money on the table. Greg Sankey's not going to see Brett Yormark bring in $50 million and say, oh, we're not going to do that because we're not going to, sacrifice the brand Southeastern Conference. I think you might see Dr. Pepper's SEC very, very soon, or even State Farm's SEC. I think you're going to see some of these bigger name companies get involved, and I think that Greg Sankey would be probably would not be very smart if he didn't chase all the money that he can get. It's an arms race. It's an arms race with the Big 10. It's an arms race with the Big 12. And if the Big 12 takes a step forward and closing the gap revenue-wise with the SEC and the Big 10, you've got to respond. And so I think that Greg Sankey is probably on the phone or has probably already had these conversations because he probably knew that this was coming down the line. It's only been put out today because maybe a slow news Thursday, and that's why we're talking money and sponsorships and not actual sports right here on the Joe Gaither Show. But I think Greg Sankey absolutely knew that this was coming, and I think that Greg Sankey is probably going to respond. You'll see the Big 10 do the same sorts of things, and so it's just a matter of time, and it's just a matter of who the SEC decides to partner themselves with. Yeah, my two serious notes or my 2 serious suggestions were Dr. Pepper and State Farm. I think that those are, I think they make perfect sense to step in and sponsor the SEC. You talk about Dr. Pepper. I mean, Dr. Pepper has been involved in pretty much all in the SEC ever since I can remember. And so anytime you go to an SEC event, it's Dr. Pepper this, it's Dr. Pepper that, and you all think about the Dr. Pepper Challenge in the championship games. I think that would make perfect sense as, oh, this is the Dr. Pepper SEC. Welcome into Saturday, the Dr. Pepper SEC, a matchup between Alabama and Tennessee. I think you are going in that direction. And I understand if it doesn't feel good, if you don't like that, but this is all an effort, in my opinion, to, one, keep up with the Joneses, and two, salvage the non-revenue sports in reaction to the House versus NCAA settlement that happened, 2 or 3 weeks ago. My other suggestions are silly. You can go with Alexander Shinara. Alexander Shinara's SEC. Call me Alabama. Call me SEC. If you get hit by a truck, if you get have an accident on the highway, call me SEC. I can just see Alexander Shinara going on commercials right now. And you can see his billboards all throughout the SEC. Now, I would personally not prefer that. Just from a saturation standpoint, he seems to be everywhere, but I think that he might explore that option. Could he raise the $30 to $50 million to buy the naming rights to the SEC? I think it would be a lot more expensive for the SEC than it is the Big 12, but that's my own personal bias right there play. A really fun one would be obviously Waffle House. Come in, the SEC's always open. 24/7 SEC is always open. I think Waffle House would be a very, very fun sponsorship. Now, I personally just love Waffle House anyways, but there's how many in Tuscaloosa, and there's how many across the footprint of the SEC. I think Waffle House, if they could afford it, it would be a lot of fun to get them involved in the naming rights for the SEC. And one that we have to avoid. Absolutely. Now, Alexander Shinara might rub some people the wrong way, and some people might be Huddle House fans instead of Waffle House fans. But one that we absolutely have to avoid that I think is at play here is Yellowwood. Oh, gosh. Yellowwood, look. With Jimmy Rain, Jimmy Rain, a big-time sponsor for a big-time booster at Auburn. His company, one of the wealthiest men in the state of Alabama. And Jimmy Rain, if you want to sponsor this show, we'll be happy to have it. But you can't have one of the SEC's biggest boosters buy the naming rights to the conference. People will insinuate lots of nefarious activities, or they'll probably throw a lot of shade. Oh, Auburn got a call. Well, of course they got a call. It's the Yellowwood SEC. Oh, Auburn got a favorable draw in a tournament. Oh, of course they did. It's the Yellowwood SEC. Oh, Auburn this, Auburn that. Auburn got a favorable television time. And look, I know Alabama gets favorable television times, but the insinuation of impropriety would be very, very heavy if you let Yellowwood, Great Southern Wood, buy the naming rights for the SEC. So, look, who do you think should buy the naming rights to the SEC? I think it is coming down the line very, very soon. And Greg Sankey will get probably a very prestigious company to slap right in the front of the State Farm SEC, Dr. Pepper SEC. I think those are probably your leading candidates, but we'll see what happens right there with Greg Sankey in response to the All-State 12 or the Big All-State Conference as the Big 12 tries to close the gap on the SEC and the Big 10. Now, one thing we haven't talked about, I believe you will see this as well. I believe you will see corporate sponsorship logos on the field in Bryant-Denny Stadium sooner rather than later. And I believe you will see corporate sponsorships on the jersey right there in Bryant-Denny Stadium on the Alabama uniform. And look, I know that most Alabama fans are traditionalists when it comes to the uniform, and I am certainly in that category as well. I don't really want to see the uniform mess with. I don't want to see a brand new, crimson and white stripes or, houndstooth this or whatever modernization of the uniform that a lot of people put out those edits. I usually hate them. I usually think that they're not attractive at all. And I usually am like, I know usually my stance is, the Alabama uniform is a little bit boring, but it's classic. Just like Penn State, just like Georgia Southern, it's classic. And so, of course, it's not very flashy, but the brand, the uniform is beautiful. I have seen, you've seen a lot of people talk about white helmets before. And yes, I think that would be the only change, fundamental change to the uniform that I would support. Because I do think the white helmet on the white on white, the white top and the white pants with a white helmet, I think that would look absolutely sick. And there's a little bit of tradition. There's a little bit of history there. Alabama's used white helmets before. But I don't want the uniform messed with fundamentally. But what I think you will see is sponsorship patches on the uniform. You see it in the NBA. You've seen it in Major League Baseball. It's very, very prevalent overseas in international soccer. Look, you watch Premier League soccer every Saturday, and it doesn't say Manchester City across the front. It doesn't say Manchester United or Liverpool or Arsenal, whatever your favorite Premier League team is. It doesn't say Tottenham across the front. No, it says Etihad Airways, or it says Jeep on the front. It's basically a nameplate for a corporate sponsorship. And that's one of the ways that these soccer teams really, really ramp up and fill their coffers and fill their money, because they're selling sponsorships all over the uniform. Now, some uniforms are tackier than others. And in Major League Baseball, I think it's on the sleeve. You got it right there on the arm sleeve. In the NBA, it's right there on the top of right there at the shoulder, right on top of the breast. So it's right there where the uniform kind of breaks, it kind of breaks away just right outside of the V-neck. Where would it be for football? I think you're talking about either of those places, right on the chest, right above your heart, or on the armband, on the sleeve. But I think Alabama's uniform will have sponsorships on it before too long. Why? Because I think Greg Byrne does want to save the non-revenue sports. I think Greg Byrne wants to have the 21 sports, and I don't think he really – look, we heard from him a week or so ago up there in Birmingham. He spoke to us. He spoke to several reporters, and they talked about, okay, what will probably change is the athlete's experience. We spend $190,000 per scholarship athlete on their experience, and that's food, that's training, that's housing, that's travel, that's everything. And so $190,000 for every athlete on campus, that's pretty expensive, in my limited opinion. And so one way that you can, I think that's the initial place where they're going to be cutting money is, we'll maybe not buy the Wagyu steak. We'll be buying different steak. We'll be a little cheaper steak for the dining halls. And maybe we're not going to travel first class everywhere. I think that some of that will happen as they're making cuts so that they can afford this $15 to $20 million line item that will be going straight into players' and athletes' pockets. But another way, I think that Greg Byrne will be exploring corporate sponsorships. I think it's going to be on the Alabama uniform before too long, and I think it's going to be on the field in Bryant-Denny Stadium before too long. And I think it's going to be one of the ways that they can maybe not sacrifice the athlete's experience as much and keep all the non-revenue sports, keep all 21 sports operating at the championship level that he wants to operate them at. And so what do you want to see on Bryant-Denny Stadium's field, or what do you want to see on the uniform? I've got several different sponsorships. I think Golden Flake is a perfect one to expand their own sponsorship right here in Tuscaloosa, or right here with the athletic department. You can see Ziegler Meats as well. They're already sponsored. They're already a sponsor for the athletic department. I think that they could expand that partnership to have signage on the field or on the uniform. Another one, just a fun one for me, Taco Casa. I mean, you already see Wilkin Formby in the commercials. His family has been long established with Taco Casa right here in Tuscaloosa. I think it would be great to get a nice local sponsorship right on the uniform or on the field at Bryant-Denny Stadium. You could pay homage to Nick Saban in two different ways. You could pay homage by organizing a sponsorship with Little Debbie. Obviously, it wouldn't be oatmeal cream pie on the field, but it would be Miss Little Debbie with the, she's got the rectangular logo that might look perfect on the 25-yard line, or it might go perfect on the arm sleeve of the Alabama uniform. It might blend in. You get the red logo with the crimson uniform. It may not stand out so much, may not stick out like a sore thumb. You could also honor Coach Saban by partnering up with Mercedes, as he's got several Mercedes dealerships. And think about what's going on here in Tuscaloosa. One of the biggest job suppliers in Tuscaloosa is the Mercedes plant, which is right outside of the city. And so, yeah, you get a lot of people excited about going to work each and every day because tons and tons and tons of people go and work at Mercedes. If you work at Mercedes, give me a shout out in the comments section. But I think that would be a very positive sponsorship for Tuscaloosa, for the University of Alabama. You can get the signage on the field, or you can put the Mercedes logo right there on the arm sleeve of the Alabama uniform. Two more. I've got Nucor and Hunt Oil Refinery. A lot of people, if you go to down Jack Warner Parkway, you'll pass Hunt Oil Refinery, and I think that they're. Really, I'm trying to think of the bigger companies that are local to Alabama that might be able to afford sponsorship, and secondarily, that Alabama would be proud to put on their uniform. Now, you can put 1831 or Gillettes on the uniform, and people might laugh at that. But I don't know that Alabama would be as proud to just stick, put a Gillettes cup right there on the 30-yard line. I think that would be hilarious. And so there's a lot of different ways that Alabama can go right here. But all of the talk that you're seeing over the last day, basically over the morning, is about the Big 12 signing over their naming rights to All-State. They're trying to figure out what name rolls off the tongue the best, and then they're exploring private equity, $1 billion from CVC Capital. From CVC Capital Partners. I guess I scribbled partners so quickly that I cannot even see it on my notes. We'll see what the Big 12 ends up doing, and we'll see how Greg Sankey ends up responding. But I think that this is the direction you're going in college athletics because of a lot in part to do with the House versus NCAA settlement. They're trying to influx a lot of cash throughout college athletics because they see this $15 to $20 million and they see, oh my gosh, how are we going to afford it? Personally, it doesn't bother me. If you're going to put a sponsorship on the uniform, stick it in a place that it's not going to stand out. Don't put it right across the chest like you do in soccer. I do like international soccer, and I watch it from time to time. And I guess I'm just used to seeing the corporate sponsorship right across the nameplate, right across the breastplate. And so it doesn't bother me as much. But I don't want to see that in college football. I don't want to see that in college basketball. I still want to see the Alabama across the front of the jersey for basketball, and I guess for football, I don't want to see anything but the number. Maybe stick the logo in the top breastplate, or stick it on the jersey, or put it on the back. Put it on the back right above the player's name. Maybe I think that there are certain spots that you could put a logo or put a sponsorship that it would be beneficial to the company, but it wouldn't distract from the tradition of the uniform. And so that's kind of it's going to be a delicate balance between both those things. The corporate sponsorship has to get their money's worth, but I think the brand, at least as it pertains to Alabama, the brand of the uniform, people recognize the uniform. I mean, if Alabama ever changed it, people would say, "Oh, who's that? That's not Alabama." And so, if you're going to put a corporate patch or a logo on the uniform, I think you have to be very, very careful where you put it on the uniform. Now, on the field, there's perfect spots for it. There's perfect spots on the hash marks on basically the 25. You can put it on the 50. I think you got to be careful not to do too many, but I think you could get 3 or 4 different sponsorships. Maybe stick one in the end zone next to, in the corner where it says Alabama. I think there's different spots on the field where you could put some corporate sponsorship signage, and it could be very, very beneficial both to the company and also to the athletes, because that's what this is all about. I think that people are trying to find a way to salvage college sports as we know it, and this is just one of the ways that they're doing it. We'll keep up with everything that's happening as the landscape is forever shifting under our feet in college athletics right here on the Joe Gaither Show. But we're going to turn things over to my other conversations that I've had today. I talked to Jacob Bain about Mississippi State basketball. Chris Jans entering his third year, and I think Mississippi State might be a little bit of a dark horse to finish in the top 5 in the SEC this season. So we talked about that with Jacob Bain of Cowbell Corner, and then we talked to Justice Sandle about the Miami Hurricane season and how Mario Cristobal can make the most out of his year 3. So appreciate you guys joining us here on the Joe Gaither Show. You can watch us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Joe Gaither 6, or you watch us on the Bama Central YouTube channel. And of course, you can always subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. And welcome back in to the Joe Gaither Show right here on a Thursday. We're going to step outside the Alabama world for just a little bit, but stay in the SEC. Bring in our friend Jacob Bain to talk about Mississippi State. We cannot wait to chat about Mississippi State. We broke down last week on this segment the Mississippi State schedule, and looks like the Bulldogs are going back to a bowl game. So if you missed that, you can go back and listen to it on the Joe Gaither Show. It was last, Wednesday or Thursday with Jacob Bain. It's right there in our podcast center on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. And then, of course, you can always find it on YouTube as well. We're getting excited to talk about some Mississippi State with Jacob Bain. Let me see if I can figure out, how about that? A little bit of a nice visual for us. Today, we're going to talk about basketball. You guys know that I love basketball, and I'm very, very excited about Alabama's basketball season. But another program on the rise in the SEC is Mississippi State. It's always a very, very difficult place to play. They got a bunch of marquee home wins last year. And we want to talk about Chris Jans, his third year, how they did in the transfer portal, how Chris Jans retained his roster, and what will be the key from going 9th in the SEC regular season standings to maybe top 4, top 5, and earning that double bye in Nashville. So that's going to be our docket for the day. We're going to talk basketball, and then on the tail end, we will talk about Mississippi State's wide receivers and tight ends and pass catchers. We'll try to decide how Jeff Levy is going to divvy up the receptions this coming up season in a high-flying offense. Sound good to you? Sounds good to me. Jacob Bain, how we doing today, man?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
Very, very good. You guys can follow Jacob Bain at JacobBain10 on the Twitter machine, or read all his great stuff on cowbellcorner.com. Jacob, you want to talk some hoops?
That sounds good to me.
All right. So everybody here in Tuscaloosa is excited for NATO. It's year number 6. So we've had a lot of fun really watching the basketball team grow. But like I said, Mississippi State's been growing as well, has been building as well. This will be Chris Jans' third year. He got himself a little contract extension after this past season. He's made back-to-back NCAA tournaments. So let's just start right there. How does the Mississippi State fans feel about Chris Jans and the job that he's doing?
I think they feel good about Jans. Rick Stansberry left about 2012, and from then until Jans was hired in 2022, state basketball was really just, kind of a bottom of the SEC traditionally, or about a year in, year out. They're the bottom of the SEC, could never break through, but Jans has done it now 2 years in a row, and he did a good job in the transfer portal because he had a lot coming back last year, but he had to replace a few starters from the year prior, but he did a good job in the transfer portal. I think fans feel good about Jans. They probably feel he's the best coach on campus, or most proven coach on campus, I would say.
Oh man, okay, all right. That's an impressive moniker for him, considering what the baseball coach has a national championship in his pocket. We'll see if Chris Jans can get to that level with Mississippi State. But let's start with what they did in the offseason. And I want to start with Josh Hubbard and Cam Matthews. Josh Hubbard was an incredible freshman last season. He was a really, really dynamic scorer, and I think really kind of drove the bus for Mississippi State. I know Tolu Smith got a lot of the credit, and Tolu has moved on now. But Josh Hubbard was an incredible player for Mississippi State. And then you bring it back Cam Matthews for his super senior year, his 5th year. and he was a pretty nice little player too, kind of playing alongside Tolu Smith. So why don't you tell us about how important it was for Chris Jans to maybe re-recruit his roster and retain Josh Hubbard and Cam Matthews?
Yeah, I'll start with Hubbard. First team all freshman, second team all SEC. Could have got freshman of the year each up from Kentucky, ended up getting it real close between them. But it was a big win for Jans to get him back in the modern age of college athletics. And, teams like Kentucky and Duke were all after Hubbard, but he decided to come back. And I think he's kind of leading the charge and the change of philosophy for Jans. His first year and part of the year last year, he relied heavily on Tolu, Jimmy Bell, big guys. But I think he's shown the portal and his recruiting that he's looking to, he said in his press conference last week, he's looking to kind of modernize his team in terms of, like, there's no positions really. And Cam Matthews, he's another one. He's like that guy. He's 6'7", 220 probably, and he can play all five positions, guard all five positions, and his progression was really insane last year because the ongoing joke was he couldn't score. His first couple of years playing, he had trouble scoring, but last year I think he ended up averaging 9 points a game. He had 15 points in several games. I think against Ole Miss and Tennessee in the SEC tournament, he did well. So I think it was good to return those two guys, kind of just a core to build around, and I think Hubbard's going to be a star.
Okay, I do too. Sophomore year, Josh Hubbard. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does in the SEC. Just from an hour and a half down the road. I know that I'll be pulling for the Alabama side, but he is so impressive in my opinion. And you're right. I think he was probably not. I don't want to say tampered with, but I think he probably had some people in his ear, maybe a little bit saying, "Oh, we'd love to have you here at Kentucky. We'd love to," and even with John Calipari moving to Arkansas, maybe we'd love to have you help us here at Arkansas. So I think it's huge to get them back for Chris Jans. He gets a contract extension, a short little contract extension, just a little add-on, and he is what? Chris Jans is, I had it right there. I just had it. He's one of how many coaches? What's the Duke coach? Controller
John something.
Yeah. All right. He's joined by John Shire and Rodney Terry of Texas to get two NCAA tournament bids in their first 2 years over the last couple of seasons. So that's a pretty good little company. Obviously, both those guys, Rodney Terry and John Shire, are at bigger programs. But for Mississippi State, I think that they are definitely on the rise. Let's talk about the transfer portal. They get Riley Kugel out of Florida, and they get Jeremy Firmina out of Rhode Island. But that's not all the work he did. He also got R.J. Melendez out of Georgia, Claudio Harris Jr. out of Boston College, Michael Nwoko out of Miami, and Kanye Clary out of Penn State. What stands out to you about this group of guys?
I think what stands out to me is most of the highlight ones, the two big men, Nwoko and Jeremy, they came from they didn't play much, but the other guys they played a lot at Power 5 schools and they produced at Power 5 schools. Riley Kugel played a lot at Florida, and I would say he's probably the most draft prospect guy out of all of them. He had a lot of buzz after his freshman year at Florida. Kind of, I wouldn't say he took a step back, but he really didn't take that step forward his sophomore year that many expected him to. But originally signed with State out of high school. Ben Howland left. So he got out of his letter of intent, went to Florida, but he's back in Starkville. And Kanye Clary, I've watched some highlights on him or whatever, and he's got the same frame as Hubbard, but I feel like his game is different than Hubbard. He's more of a get to the rim kind of guy, mid-range guy, while Hubbard's, chunking 25-foot threes. But R.J. Melendez is another guy, 6'7". Jans mentioned he wants guys starting that can guard all five positions. I think he fits the bill. He averaged 9 points at Georgia last year, scored 35 in the game, I think. And Claudio Harris is another guy, averages 14 points at Boston College, can score. So I think it was just Jans just shifting his focus from really the big man to just getting a bunch of scores. And he's a defensive guy, so I think he's getting scores and trying to teach them defense instead of getting defensive guys and trying to teach them offense.
You think that's going to work for Mississippi State? Because the big question for me is, how do you get from ninth in the conference up into that top 4, top 5 zone? You look at the conference standings and how it really played out for Mississippi State. Now, it worked very well with that number 9 seed in the SEC tournament. They beat LSU, you beat Tennessee, and then ultimately lost to Auburn in the semifinal. So it was a nice little run and really secured the NCAA tournament bid. But how can Mississippi State maybe take a step forward as a team so that maybe they're competing for one of those double buys this coming season?
They could have to take a step forward. I'll just say it's the SEC is a lot tougher now in basketball than it was maybe 5 years ago. I mean, Alabama's really good, Auburn's really good, Tennessee's really good, Kentucky's always good. Now Arkansas with Calipari, they'll be talented, that. But I think what State needs to take to the next level is they just really need I think what they've been lacking in the first year with Jans, and we saw it a little bit in the second half, is really that star power. I feel like basketball is more of a star-driven game. You can really just need one dynamic player who can lead your team. And I think Hubbard is that guy. And if Hubbard can take another step forward and say he moves from 17 points a game to maybe 20 points a game, 22 points a game, I think they could take a step forward. And it's really the offense that's been holding them back the past couple of years because the defense has always been silent under Jans. And they lose some key defenders like DJ Jeffries, who's probably one of the better all-ball defenders in the SEC. But I think Jans he's changed his philosophy where he's wanting to get scores and, figure out defense in the off season and during the season. And I think it'll work out for him because Jans, defense is mainly effort. You can't teach offense. You can teach defense. So I think it'll be tough to move into the top 4 range just because of how deep the SEC is. And like I said, it's amazing how much it's changed in the last 10 years.
It absolutely is amazing, and I love it just as an observer because you see different teams every year competing for that SEC championship.
I forgot about Ole Miss, Chris Beard. I mean,
Continue. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just speaking about how deep the league is. I mean, Ole Miss, Chris Beard. I mean, Missouri had a bad year last year, but the year before they had a really good season. Texas A&M, Buzz Williams. I mean, it's just a deep league, and I think it shows that. I think about 5-6 years ago, the SEC athletic directors just said, "Hey, we're going to put an emphasis on basketball and try to put our foot in the door." And I think the SEC has, and it's arguably the best conference in college basketball.
It really, really is. And you're seeing a lot of the national media folks projecting this coming up year's tournament. And obviously we've got 6 months until the season even starts. So a lot of things can change and a lot of things will change between now and November. But you're seeing them project the SEC as, this league's going to have the most teams in the 2025 NCAA tournament. And in my childhood, it was always the ACC and the Big East. And I think it's a lot of fun to watch the league shift a little bit.
Oh yeah, it's been fun. It's because I remember basketball season when State was down. I mean, Kentucky was good. LSU had Ben Simmons there for a little bit, but they really didn't take advantage of that. But it's exciting watching basketball because you got football stacked in SEC now, basketball and baseball has been stacked for a while. So it is exciting to see other teams, including State, be good at putting emphasis on basketball. It makes it more exciting.
All right, so we're talking basketball with Jacob Bain from Cowbell Corner. We're talking about Mississippi State, and I'm looking at the results from the last 2 years, and obviously it's very good to be back in the NCAA tournament. You went, between 2019 and 2023 without making it into the tournament. But my goodness, Jacob, it's been since 2008 since Mississippi State got a win in the NCAA tournament. You lost in the first round in 2009. You lost in the first round in 2019. You lost in the first 4 in 2023 under Chris Jans. And this past season, you lost to Michigan State. So let's just talk about it. Is the Mississippi State fans and really the administration, is it, we're just happy to be in the tournament, and if we lose in the first round, so be it? I mean, last year you lose to Michigan State, Tom Izzo, that's just a really, really hard draw in the 8-9 matchup. The year earlier, you're playing Pittsburgh in the first 4 up there in Dayton. It's 2 11 seeds going at it, and it became a 1-point loss. So, you kind of roll the dice on that and have to accept that. But what's it going to take for Mississippi State to not only go back to the NCAA tournament for the 3rd year, but win a game?
Yeah, I think among the expectation is I've mentioned in an article, Giants, he improved. Year one, he got in the first four, lost. And this past year, he avoids the game, but he loses in the first round. So I think the next step in the progression is, like you said, winning that first NCAA tournament game. And, the NCAA tournament's crazy. You could win a couple games, get in the Sweet 16. That would do a lot for this program. And I think fans and the administration's happy that basketball has turned around, and expectations are higher, but higher expectations, it could lead to disappointment if you lose games. So I think there's pressure for State to be better than they were last year, which they had the same. I think they had the same record last year as they did his first year, but it felt completely different. Beat Tennessee twice, beat Auburn at home, you beat Ole Miss, and made it into the tournament. But I think the step that needs to be taken to win that game is Josh Hubbard's just got to keep progressing, like I said, and just become that star player. And you got Kanye Clary and Riley Kugel, who, like I said, has that NBA draft buzz after his freshman year. If he can take another step forward, and I think he'll probably play the three next year at State. If he can take a step forward along with Hubbard and Matthews, what you're going to get. He's gonna play solid defense. He's gonna rebound. He's gonna play really hard. He'll probably average 10 points a game, 6 or 7 rebounds. But I think for the biggest thing for State to take that step forward is just simple. They just got to score. Last year they relied heavily on Hubbard. If they can get Kanye Clary, Kugel, Claudel Harris to play really good on offense, and if Melendez can kind of play that, be kind of the Cam Matthews kind of role, just play really good defense and get rebounds for you. And another key probably is the big man, because Michael Nwoko and Jeremy, can't pronounce his last name, from Rhode Island.
I've got it as Formina.
Formina. If those guys can step up and be solid at the 5, I think Formina is a true 7-footer. I think he's listed at 7 foot. If they can just play good defense around the rim and not necessarily just be a star for State, but just don't be a negative. Don't be bad, and be solid at what you do. Just play your role, I guess you would say.
We are really looking forward to basketball season, just on the whole here. But you can follow Jacob Bain talking basketball and writing about basketball on Cowbell Corner, and follow him at Jacob Bain 10. Jacob, one more basketball question for you after we've kind of danced around the season. What's the one thing that maybe you think that people who are not connected to Mississippi State need to know about Mississippi State basketball, or maybe a storyline that you think will develop over the course of the season?
I think if somebody who hasn't paid attention to Chris Jones' team at State, is just how hard they play and how good they are on defense. It's team defense, truly. They got a couple of really good on-ball defenders in Jeffries and Matthews. But I remember last year sitting in the hump watching. It was incredible. Guys would drive and they'd cut them off, and then they'd pass out of the corner to an open three, assuming there's a guy hustling there. And Josh Hubbard is probably the biggest storyline, because he's the one who can catch everybody's attention. He'll pull up from deep behind 3-point range, and he'll nail it. And he's not afraid to take the big shot. And he's not. I think Kobe Bryant might have said it. He's not afraid to miss shots. If he puts up 7 threes in the first half and he doesn't hit one, he'll put up 7 more in the second half. He's going to keep shooting. And I think that's a good thing. I think that makes him entertaining to watch for fans, outside of Mississippi State fans.
Well, let's flip some things real quick, and let's talk about football before we close out our time with Jacob Bain here on Cowbell Corner, part of our Walsh Writing Network. We've talked football the last couple of weeks with you, and we've talked a lot about Blake Shepard, the transfer from Baylor. We've talked about the Jeff Levy offense, but we really haven't talked a lot about the pass catchers. We haven't talked about the guys who are going to need to get open for Blake Shepard. So Mississippi State's got a lot of different guys, a handful of transfers, and then you're seeing some underclassmen as well. I'll just kind of highlight some of the transfers. You got Justin Ball out of Vanderbilt is transferred in to play tight end. You got Kevin Coleman has transferred from Louisville, maybe a little slot receiver, 5'11" guy. Kelly Akari out of UTEP has also transferred in. Jordan Mosley has been on the roster, and he transferred from Northwestern several years ago, so he's been on the roster at Mississippi State. Let's just talk about the receivers and how you think the pass catchers will maybe produce this season.
Yeah, you mentioned Kelly Akari, and if the spring game is any indication, he'll be a star. He had breakaway speed. He can make He could make some very impressive catches. So I think if there's one guy outside of receiver that could be a star, it's Kelly Akari. And you mentioned Justin Ball, his brother Cameron Ball, came in from Buffalo, I think. So they had to retool that tight end room when Leach left. Leach notoriously didn't recruit tight ends.
Right.
And Arnett brought in Rylan Godey, and I ain't gonna say nothing bad about him, but he just wasn't very impressive when he played. And you had Antonio Harmon, who's still on the roster. He plays receiver. They try to move him over to the tight end, move a couple offensive linemen to the tight end. It never worked out. So they had to retool that room, and they got the Ball brothers. And I think a guy that people really aren't talking about that could be a star for State, especially with the Lebby offense, is if you watch Ole Miss, it seems like their tight ends always wide open on a play action. And I think a star for State could be Seydou Traore. He transferred from Arkansas State to Mississippi State last year. He committed. He went to Colorado for spring practice, and then he transferred out again, so he would be ineligible for last season at State. But he was really highly touted. I think he was a 4-star when he signed with State out of the transfer portal, and he's a really athletic guy. He's got a tight end's height, but I think he's got wide receiver like hands and athletic ability. So Traore, definitely Kelly Akari. Kevin Coleman's another one. He had a good spring game. He'll work in the slot. And then there's a trio of 4-star high school guys that they signed. Stonka Burnside from Starkville, J.J. Harrell from North Panola, and Mario Craver from Alabama. And if any of those guys are going to be a star in their first year, I think it's Mario Craver. He's just got tremendous speed. And Stonka Burnside, I think fans want him to be a star his first year, but just because local guy from Starkville High, and he could be. I think he's got a physical build to be that AJ Brown kind of build. But I think it's going to be a good year for State receivers, and it's kind of been that State's had some talented receivers ever since Mike Leach got to State. Xavion Thomas was really good last year, but he's at LSU now. But I think it'll be good for State receivers this year.
Well, that's going to do it with our time with Jacob Bain. I'm really excited to see how these receivers kind of assimilate to the Jeff Lebby offense. It'll be kind of similar to Mike Leach, but a lot more sophisticated and a lot faster pace under Jeff Lebby. We're looking forward to reading all about it on Cowbell Corner and following the coverage at Jacob Bain 10 on the Twitter machine. Jacob, thanks so much for your time this week.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. No. Welcome back into the Joe Gaither Show right here on a Thursday. Part of the Walsh Writing Network. We just talked to Jacob Bain about Mississippi State basketball and who maybe some of their better pass catchers will be this year in the Jeff Lebby offense. Let's keep things rolling on a Thursday with our friend Justice Sandle talking about Miami Hurricanes. We talked to Justice last week about Hurricane spring practice, and just like we've done with the other Walsh Writing Network websites, we're going to go through the 2024 schedule and predict the schedule, wins and losses. Will Mario Cristobal get himself a bowl win with the Hurricanes? Will they finish any better than 9th in the ACC? We'll see if Cam Ward can get it done. First, you can follow Justice Sandle at Justice_News5 on the Twitter machine. Make sure you do that for all of the Hurricanes coverage. And go to CaneCentral.com to read all about the Miami Hurricanes this year. Justice, how are we doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing very, very well. Enjoying a nice day here in Alabama. You want to talk some Miami football?
Absolutely. Be excited to.
Okay, so we have an interesting schedule, and this is Mario Cristobal's third season in charge. And we've had a slow little build through year one and year two. And last week on the show, you kind of outlined some of the changes that Mario Cristobal has made in the program, and particularly their win in the transfer portal, getting Cam Ward out of Washington State. Let's talk about the season. You start on August 31st, and it's going to be a terrible place to play at Florida. It's going to be a rivalry game right off the bat. And no matter how you feel about Billy Napier and the Florida Gators, the Swamp is a terrible place for visitors. How do you think they get the Miami Hurricanes get the season started?
I think they get started with a W. I don't know all the stuff that's surrounding the Florida program right now. I think it could be a distraction for the team. And plus, the team hasn't really been competing the way that they've needed to compete over the past couple of years. So I think they started with a W, and I think it'll be a dominant run game that helps them do that, because it's been a bit of a hit or miss on the defensive line for what Florida's been doing over the past couple of years. So I think that's how they'll get it done.
I'm going to go with you. I think they're going to go into Florida and get a win just because my feeling on Billy Napier is that he is a good coach, but he's just not very organized in the details, in my opinion. And so I think that some of those details will come back to bite them, and Miami will get a win, maybe due to a very small talent disparity. Is there any reason to talk about the next two games? Obviously, we will, but Miami goes back home for week number 2, and they're taking on the Florida A&M Rattlers. What are we thinking about, a 63-0 victory to open up Hard Rock Stadium in 2024?
Yeah, it should be something similar to that. I think it was 70-3 last season. Yeah, it should be something similar to that. Now, they did win the SWAC last year, but the conference difference, and plus there's a different head coaching change and a lot of just different turnover. I expect the same thing to happen once again.
All right, so when we did this with our Alabama contingent on Tuesday, we talked to Mason Woods to predict the Alabama season. If you want to go back and listen to that, you can on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, or Spotify. Just look up the Joe Gaither Show. When we did this on Tuesday with Mason Woods, we landed, 7 or 8, 9 weeks down into the season, and Alabama's taking on Mercer. And I just asked Mason, what are we doing with these cupcake games still on the schedule? Now I know, okay, it's very financially beneficial to the smaller school. But as far as the consumer, and as far as what it helps Miami, what it helps the Hurricanes program, what is the benefit of having a Florida A&M on the schedule, or teams like that on the schedule?
To be honest, I don't know. There's no reason schedule-wise for them to play them. Now, I think environment-wise, crowd-wise, it's an HBCU, so it'll be a good and exciting environment. You get to hear good music. You get to do all those types of things. But outside of that, football-wise, play on the field, it's drastically different. It's night and day for what is actually being put on the field. So I don't know why they do that outside of financial benefits. I think later on Ball State, I think they're getting $1 million for playing us. So I don't really understand why. Just cupcakes, just to get a boost on the resume. That's all I think it is. But every major program does it. So
I'm using my teeny tiny platform to suggest that college football just bans all of these games. Like, there's no reason to have, and I know the financial benefit for the smaller school. That's the only thing that I can think of. But for football, I'm with you. There's no point. Mario Cristobal, they're going to win. Miami's going to win 63-3, 70-0. Might give up 10 points to the Rattlers. Yeah. But it's just I don't know that these reps are very valuable to the Miami program. So big old win. You move on. Ball State, you're still at home, and we're at 2-0 so far. Ball State, another pretty comfortable win. It's a step up from Florida A&M. Yeah. But are you taking a big win?
Taking another dub, going 3-0, starting out the season. There's no reason that they shouldn't, outside of something happening in the Florida game, but they should be 3-0 up until this point into their schedule.
All right, I'm with you there. Another big win, and there's not really any reason to talk about the matchup with the Cardinals. Yeah. But then you go across the state. You go across the state to an improved USF program. Obviously, the Alabama fans are familiar with what happened last year in Tampa at Raymond James Stadium, winning 17-3. And they will be coming off, right? Yeah, USF will be coming off a trip to Tuscaloosa. So this will be the next week. Are you on upset alert, or is it going to be another win for Miami?
I think it's a trap game, to be honest with you, because the offense improved dramatically from what they were doing the previous year before. A lot of records being broken with their quarterback play and their wide receiver play when I was doing my review earlier this month. so many things that the USF program is doing. They're heading in the right direction, and I think it'll be an offensive showcase. I think Miami will edge it out because of their defense, but it will be a very close game. I wouldn't say it'll be to the same similarities of that Alabama game, but I think it'll be a close game. But I think Miami will somehow, some way, they'll get that victory.
All right, so I'm with you just in the fact that it's going to be a trap game, and I'm taking the USF Bulls to win the game at home. I think it'll be close, but yeah, it's not going to be like that Alabama game last year where it was 17-3. It's going to be 28-31, or it's going to be 24-20, or it's going to be higher scoring than last year's matchup when Alabama went there. But I'm with you. USF is a program on the rise. I think they're going to come into Tuscaloosa and hang around the game for a little bit and really show that their offense is still very good. Byron Brown, sophomore quarterback, is a pretty electric dual threat quarterback. I think that the Bulls are going to be a team to watch out for next year. So I'm taking a loss. I'm taking a loss. I've got Miami now 3-1. You're still on the undefeated track, undefeated. And then they play their first ACC game against the Virginia Tech Hokies. They're coming back home, so this is a nice friendly confines of Hard Rock Stadium. You think Virginia Tech will win on the road, or will Miami keep its record perfect?
I think they'll keep their record perfect. It's not in Virginia Tech, so I believe that is a very, very positive outlook. But they are returning a lot of their starters and a lot of their production from last season, so it could be a very interesting game. It'll be similar to the USF game, I believe. It'll be a high-scoring game, back and forth, maybe a field goal win or a touchdown towards the end of the game. But up until this point, I think that Miami should be undefeated at this point in the season. They really should be.
All right, so I'm going to go with you as well that Miami will win. I think especially if they lose to USF on the road in Tampa, they're going to come back and want to have a nice bounce-back game. So I'm going to take them to get off to a good start in the ACC and get a win over Virginia Tech. Now, another conference game at Cal. You fly all the way across the country to take on the Cal Golden Bears. Time obviously is to be announced, but the time zone changes will be at play. It'll be interesting to hear Mario Cristobal decide or explain when they're going to go out to Cal. Are they going to go on Thursday to get acclimated? Are they going to go late? Or that'll be a very interesting week logistically for Miami. Yeah. Are you taking them to win on the road?
I am, but that time logistics and the jet lag and it all depends on how the schedule plays out and when they leave and when they don't leave. I know that when Mario was at Oregon, he has an understanding of what that time zone is and how things play out over there, but it'll be brand new for some of those players outside of Cam Ward and Damian Martinez, who were in the Pac-12 last season. So they'll have a semblance of understanding, but it's a lot of other talent that have not been flying back and forth like that ever in their careers. I still think it's a win. Plus, I don't think Cal has gotten better with the transfer portal, but I don't think it was the step that they initially wanted to get those players that they wanted to see themselves be where they want to be at this point in the season.
All right, so I'm going to go opposite you again here. I think that they're going to lose on the road. Yes, Cal was only 6-7 last season in the Pac-12, and as you said, they worked a little bit in the transfer portal, bringing in Tobias Merriweather to play wide receiver and Mikey Matthews as well. But I just think that the time zone difference and really the travel is going to put Miami out of its element a little bit. You think back to last year. Auburn went out to Cal, and Auburn did win the game, but it was an ugly, ugly game. What was it? 14? Yeah, Auburn won 14-10. Yeah. So I think that Miami might be in for a little bit of a surprise here, and I'm taking a loss. So now I'm at 4-2. You're still undefeated, right?
Still undefeated.
Okay, 4-2. We're going 1-1 in the conference. So that's really the key number here because we're trying to see if Miami will make the ACC championship game. All right, so after the trip to California, you get a nice little break. You're on a bye week. So the schedule makers did you a favor. I've asked every one of our experts about their opinion on the double bye week this season. Justice Sandle, what do you think about having 2 bye weeks in a year?
I think it's great, especially for the athletes. If they're going to travel the way that they're about to start traveling now, with how it's only a Power Four conference now, going from California and coming right back, going to Kentucky and just going back and forth, I think it's a great idea having 2 bye weeks. It'll leave players more healthy. I think things will be progressively better with 2 bye weeks.
I agree with you completely. I'm excited about it, even though it will mean a weekend of, missing an extra weekend of missing your favorite team on TV. I think it'll be very beneficial to the athletes, and goodness gracious, it's time. I think it's time that we keep the athletes first in sports, because they're the ones doing all the work.
Absolutely.
You go to California, you're back home in sunny Miami for a week, and then you go up to Louisville in the ACC championship last year, losing to Florida State. You're on the road. Are you staying undefeated in Miami, going up to Louisville?
No, they're going to take their first L here. I think they're going to be they're going to come down from a high. They're going to be 6-0 up until this point. They're thinking that things are going to go really well. Then they're just going to run into a buzzsaw, I think. Look, Louisville, I think they have a chance to win the ACC again like they did last season, but it also depends on Florida State and Clemson as well. But look, they're a very talented program and very well coached, and I think that could come and hurt the Hurricanes.
Yeah, I think that this looks like the most important part of the schedule, the start of the most important part of the schedule. 4 ACC games in a row. We've got at Louisville, Florida State, Duke, and Georgia Tech. And really, I think if you want to get into that ACC championship game, it starts right here. But I'm unfortunately with you. I'm giving Miami a loss up there in Kentucky, losing to Louisville. So I'm with you there.
Yeah.
Do they bounce back at home against FSU? FSU bringing in DJ Uiagalelei to play quarterback. They've been building and obviously are feeling very spurned after last year's college football playoff decision. Does Florida State go into Hard Rock Stadium and get a win, or can Mario Cristobal get it back on track?
I think they do get a win. I think Florida State does get a win. Now, is DJ the best quarterback in the world? In my opinion, not really. But I think that with his experience and what the program has around him, they could come in and just upset, because Hard Rock isn't really a home field advantage in most places. So all those Florida State fans traveling down, they could make a very big impact for what that game could be. I think that's a loss.
Yeah, I think it's a loss too, and I think you're starting to enter some dangerous territory for the season, because now I've got 4-4, and I've got Miami at 1-3 in the ACC. So I'm taking a loss for Miami. I think that just the Florida State program is at a better place right now, and I think they utilize the transfer portal. I mean, Cam Ward aside, I think Florida State utilized the transfer portal a bit better. Miami probably got the better quarterback out of the portal, but on the whole, I think Florida State managed their portal much better. So you're 4-4, you're at 1-3. Are the knives starting to come out for Mario Cristobal around the Miami fan base?
If that's the case, absolutely. There's no doubt about it, because you need those wins. These are major wins. You have to prove that there have been points where he hasn't been able to prove himself in the ACC. The Florida State win will be big, and a Louisville win will be big. But if you can't get those and deliver with those top programs in that conference, I think knives are starting to be thrown, and people are going to get I think people are going to start getting worried.
But on your sheet, Miami is 6-2, and they're 2-2 in the conference, so they're still kind of hanging right in there in the mix to win the conference. And the overall record is still looking pretty good at 6-2. So we'll see who's right when it's all said and done. But let's move on to the Duke matchup. You're staying at home after the Florida State game, and Duke has been, an ascending program. They had a little bit of time last year where they were leading the ACC. They fell off towards the back end of the year. Can Miami bounce back against the Duke Blue Devils?
I think they do. I know that they do have a new quarterback in Malik Murphy, who was under Quinn Ewers for quite a little bit of time. But I don't think that the talent surrounding him will be as adequate as it was in Texas. If you were comparing conferences between each other, I think Miami will get it done, and I think it'll be a defensive showcase on what the Hurricanes can do.
I'm with you there again. I think that Duke, has been has been building as a program, and they obviously lost their head coach to Texas A&M, but after on my sheet losing back-to-back games, this is a game they have to win. So I'm giving them a win. And on your sheet, losing to Florida State, they need to bounce back. I think they do that against Duke. Now, goodness gracious, when is a game at Georgia Tech very interesting? Really never, but maybe this year it is after the debacle of last season's game with Miami having the game won and go up to Georgia Tech this year. So it will be on the road. Can they keep their, build a 2-game win streak and fight their way back into the top end of the ACC?
After what happened last season, if they don't win this game, Nige will be out. There's no doubt about it. There'll be complete anger and turmoil around everything for Mario Cristobal. They should win this game, and in my opinion, they should win it in a very dominant fashion to recover for what they did last season.
All right, so now I've got it at 6-4, so it's looking a little better, and I've got 3-3 in the ACC. Now you, on the other hand, are at 4-2 in the ACC and 8-2 on the year.
Yes.
8-2, you're feeling pretty good if you're a Miami Hurricanes fan. I mean, obviously you want to beat Louisville and you want to beat Florida State even worse, but on the whole, this is looking like a pretty nice step forward for Mario Cristobal.
Yes, I think that in his third season, now he has a number of players that he's wanted in his program, I think, and he knows what he wants out of his recruits. I think now that he's had the time to sit and do with what the players that he has, I think he'll finally get over the hump in the ACC this season.
All right, so let's keep it going. You get another bye week, so another week of rest for you on the beat. Well, not so much, but for the players, definitely. So you're off on November 16th, and then you return back home after hopefully beating Georgia Tech. You need that win. And then you're playing Wake Forest. You're keeping the ACC season going. Do they continue their win streak? I mean, if you're at looking at your sheet, you're fighting to be in that ACC championship.
I believe that they will continue to be fighting in that ACC championship. What serves my memory correct, they have not lost to Wake Forest since 1944. If my memory serves me correct, they should not lose another game to Wake Forest anytime soon.
All right, let's look at my sheet. I love to go to Winsipedia and check out matchups. Miami is 8-3 all time against Wake Forest. The last loss came in 1944.
Yeah.
So they're 7 wins in a row: 69, 71, 04, 05, 08, and 09, and 2013.
Mm-hmm. They should continue with that. They should. Wake Forest is good for baseball. Outside of that, they have a good basketball team every now and then, but football, they're not really a football type of conference. So
I'm going to go with you as well. I wrote down a win from my sheet right here. I think this will be probably an emphatic victory and start making people feel good. But then you have a very tough trip, and I think it's an underrated tough trip. People talk about, Syracuse is not very good, and traditionally, maybe not so much, but going up and playing up there, it's the old Carrier Dome. I think it's now the JMA Wireless Dome. Everybody's selling their souls for sponsorships. You think they can, on your sheet, they got to get it because if so, they're going to be in that ACC championship.
I'm tossed right now between because they should win this game. I'm going to give them a W. I'm going to give them a W. That's what I'm going to do. They should be 10-2 at this point in this season. I know. They should be fighting for an ACC championship spot and even a playoff spot if they're going 10-2. But Syracuse, they're an all right program for football, but they're not the best program for football. And I think Miami has out-recruited them, and they should be able to outplay them.
All right, now this is going to be another place where I'm going to deviate from you, just because I think it's going to be up and down season for Miami, winning some games and losing some games. I've got a loss up there at Syracuse, and I've got them landing on 7-5. 4-4 in the conference. But for you, 10-2, 6-2 in the conference. We'll just play your sheet. I'm looking back at last year's ACC standings. Obviously, Florida State was undefeated. They went 8-0 in the conference, and they played Louisville in the ACC championship game, who came into the championship game 7-1. 6-2, you're right there on the edge. NC State was 6-2. They finished third. Are you feeling like 6-2 is good enough to be in that ACC title game?
It depends on how well Clemson plays as well. Now, Miami did beat Clemson last year, which was a shocker for most people. But if you were paying attention close to what was happening with Clemson, things just didn't go in the way that they expected it. Now, it could be a change this season. I think we'll have to worry about what Clemson does, what NC State does as well, even North Carolina, what they'll do. But I think that no, I don't know. I think they'll probably miss out short because Florida State is still a dominant program. Louisville will still be good. And I think Clemson will be back in where they were the seasons before this previous season. So I think we'll miss out on that ACC championship game, but I think it'll be a step in the right direction for what Mario Cristobal wants to do for this program.
Yeah, if you're at 6-2 in the league, you might be sitting there tied for second and maybe lose a tiebreaker to Louisville, or it depends on how the tiebreakers work with Clemson. That might put you right on the outside, but you get the right break. You're right there in it. So I think that's a huge step forward for Mario Cristobal. And even at 7-5, you're going to a bowl game. You would like to ensure that you win that bowl game to finish 8-5. Do you think the Miami faithful would be okay with an 8-5 if they finished with a bowl game win?
I think they'd be okay. They wouldn't be happy, but they'd be okay with a bowl win. I think they have a lot of expectations. The feels that I'm feeling around right now in that area, they're very excited for this football season and what can be done. So they want a playoff game. That's what they want with the expanded system now. But I think they'd be decently okay if it was a bowl win. I do think that.
All right, so that's going to do it for our schedule preview with Justice Sandle. You can follow him at Justice_News5 on the Twitter machine. Make sure you're reading all of his coverage at Kane Central. We'll see who's right and who's wrong in the next couple of months. And again, this is June. June. You still got to get to the ACC Media Days. You still got to go through fall camp. Lots of things can change, and we'll circle back with Justice as more information kind of breaks out. Justice, thanks for your time, man.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely. That's Justice Sandle joining us, and that's going to do it for our program today. We've been hanging out with you guys on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. You'll watch us at Joe Gaither 6, or you watch us on the Bama Central YouTube channel. We encourage you guys to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. You can just type in the Joe Gaither Show. It'll pop right up. We're talking all kinds of sports, mostly Alabama, but expanding our coverage on the Walsh Riding Network. We'll be making some changes very soon, breaking all these individual segments into their own podcast. And we appreciate everybody who has joined the journey so far. We'll be back to join you on Friday with another edition of the Joe Gaither Show right here on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com.
Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. Keep up with Joe on all his social media pages at Joe Gaither 6. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to read us daily at BamaCentral.com.